Good evening and welcome to the Greg Tompsett Sports Show. You were joining me here tonight with many handsome, wonderful guests here as we're going to kick off the series that we start looking into this fun 2024 NFL season. And I thought, what better way to do it than to bring on some of my favorite hot take artists, some people that I respect their ability to make me chuckle or recoil and shock. So I'm looking forward to the bold predictions of the esteemed panel that I have here. To my left, we have fantastic reviewer of Number One Network, Chris Seth. We have Uber Hansen. We have friend of the show and editor of the SI Bills network over there, Silagyi, and our own David Fox. Gentlemen, how are we doing this evening?
Yeah, doing great. Excited to be here. Glad to get another shot at bringing some crazy predictions. I'm looking forward to some time to hear what these other ridiculously handsome men have to say.
So kind. You're trying to butter me up here.
Absolutely.
I do appreciate it.
You know, I'm here. I'm living. I did laundry and actually started it and finished it all in the same day, which does not all. It happens maybe 50% of the time for me. So I feel pretty good about that.
Congratulations on your adulting. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Right, impressive.
Yeah. On occasion. Go ahead.
I'm just. You're going to hear my voice, which is a little bit different than it normally is. This is the result of singing the shout song at a wedding on Friday night, and I'm still struggling with it.
Shout song.
I was vicariously living through your live tweeting of the wedding. It sounded like a wonderful time was had by all.
Very good time. Yes.
Wedding season is enjoyable. Is very, very enjoyable. So. We have a handful of different topics. I tried not to rein things in too much, but just to give everybody a little bit of an idea of where things are going. We've got 5 categories that we're going to be going around the panel here. We have our boldest division winner. We have our boldest disappointing season. The biggest statistical breakout or award prediction. It could go either way. I left that a little bit open. I did leave a wild card round where any other prediction could be thrown in, and then one that maybe we need to look a little off the field, whether that's could be things like a rule change, could be a prediction of a firing, it could be all of the drama around the TV networks and deals, or anything else that could be there. And I did try to make it that you actually have to believe this in some semblance. I don't know if it's like a 1 in 4 chance of happening, but there, you can't just throw out completely insane things. You have to actually believe that there's a shot that this is there. So obviously, as with any great bold prediction show, if these end up coming true, we will trumpet them from the rooftops. And if none of them happen, we'll forget the show ever happened, because that's the beauty of the internet. So as we get started here, I will give the floor first to the gentleman who is now a guest of the Cover One Network, but always near and dear to our hearts. So before I ask you for your boldest division winner, Mr. Silagyi, how is the world of Sports Illustrated? Been really exciting. Seen a lot of the new articles get picked up around a lot of different areas, and it seems like it's off to a pretty exciting start.
It is. Yeah, we're off to a great start over there. Cover One guys are now writing for that site. So if you were a fan of the Cover One written work last year and in previous years, that's now on the Sports Illustrated website or si.com/Bills. All that great stuff. So make sure to check that out. We have a bunch of other content as well. But yeah, it's going good. Off to a good start, especially considering that it is July and there is really not much to talk about. But we're making it work, and we're getting excited for training camp.
Awesome. So I'll let you kick things off here. When we talk about our boldest division winner, I'm really curious here, because I won't lie, I went through and I do think a fair amount of the favorites are going to win their division, or I had a couple where it was, one team was, plus 130 and another team was plus 150. And I'm like, well, I do think the plus 150 team's going to win, but that's not all that bold. So I'm curious to hear what names come up here. We'll let you start, Kyle. What is the the biggest reach that you see winning their division this season?
All right, so I was gonna say the Indianapolis Colts, but then I was like,
on my list.
I was like, that's not that like bold. Like, yeah, the Jags are good. The Texans are probably the favorite. But like, I don't think anyone would be shocked if Anthony Richardson comes back and it's just the world beater and the general roster is good. I don't think anyone would be shocked. So I decided life is far too short to not say that the Chicago Bears are going to win the NFC North in 2024. We're going for it. I am a big Caleb guy. I have been a big Caleb guy since he came in the second half against Texas a couple years ago for Oklahoma because I hated Spencer Rattler. And ever since, I've been like, Caleb is the guy. So I think we want to get another bold take. I think Caleb Williams is going to get an MVP vote this year, at least one. We're going crazy here to start. But yeah, we got Caleb Williams there leading the show. We got Roma Dunze, who's only part of that stellar supporting cast that they built around Caleb with DeAndre Swift, which say what you will about DeAndre Swift, but I also like Roshan Johnson. They have DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze. They signed Gerald Everett to go with Cole Kmet. They have a lot of guys that I like defensively with Montez Sweat, TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, which... Ooh, cover what show? I don't know if the comments are going to be great about Tremaine Edmonds.
Had a solid season last year.
Tyreek Stevenson. They have a bunch of guys just around that roster that I like. And then you look at their new offensive coordinator that they brought in, Shane Waldron, who is, going to be pulling the strings there for Caleb and all those guys. He comes from a Sean McVay, the Sean McVay tree. So I am bought in on the Bears in general. I will say NFC North win is bold, given that the Detroit Lions exist and the Green Bay Packers are there. But if either slip up, I think Chicago's going to be right there to pull it out.
I like it. Just as a frame of reference for people listening, they have plus 330 odds. So the odds for them, they're third in the division. They have the Lions at plus 135, the Packers at plus 195. So certainly a legitimate, dark horse to be predicted there, and you could see it in the faces of the panel around here. So this one will go to Mr. Fox next. What is your prediction for the boldest take? Can you outdo Kyle?
So this is gonna sound like a weak take initially, but there is something more to it. So first part of the take. First of all, I will say that the Colts were going to be my original pick, but now it kind of seems like that's not like the boldest thing I could say. So I had this one.
Just statistically, they have the exact same odds as the Chicago Bears. They're also plus 330 to win their division. So that is no less bold.
I understand
from a gambling standpoint.
I understand that
from the odds I'm looking at on my screen right now.
So my boldest division winner is that the Philadelphia Eagles win their division, which isn't that bold. Right? They're going to win their division by a 6-game margin. They are going to be 13-4, and the next best team is probably going to be the Cowboys at 7-10.
Oh my God!
Okay, I was ready to give you a hard time for choosing a division favorite as your boldest one, but I will give you full points because. Predicting a 6-game margin in the NFC East is awesome. I need that in my soul. I think I hate the Eagles the least of the NFC. They're the only one who didn't beat us in the Super Bowl. So I have the least animosity towards them. But okay, all right.
I think the collapse of the Eagles last year was troubling, obviously. But I think that was also a team that won more games early on than they should have. And so all of their bad juju and luck kind of just came all at once, and it all just spiraled out of control, and they just couldn't figure out a way to change it other than being like, Matt Patricia will be our defensive play caller now. This'll make it worse, surprisingly. I think that there are a lot of things that they did that, getting Bryce Huff as a rotational edge guy, I think just is such a classic Howie Roseman thing. Getting Saquon Barkley is not a Howie Roseman thing. It's very anti-Howie. It's such an odd, unusual thing for him to do, but man, the dynamics of that offense with that, plus Kellen Moore being the offensive coordinator now. Like, if you watched the Eagles more than just a game or two last season, you saw one of the biggest problems offensively was just a bizarre tendency to basically just go to what is the most basic answer to whatever the defense is throwing. Oh, they're going to blitz us a lot. Let's throw a bubble screen. And that was, I distinctly remember against Kansas City, Steve Spagnuolo loves blitzing. Okay, let's run a bubble screen. Okay, that got a yard. All right, let's throw another one. That got no yards. And it's like, stop doing this. Figure something else out here. So I don't think that'll be the case this year. I think having both Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, whose defenses always take time. We know this. We saw this last year with Miami. They take time to develop, but the Eagles still have talent, and they brought in a lot of talent, a lot of young talent as well. So I feel very good about the Eagles in this division. I feel very badly about the rest of this division. The rest of this division absolutely sucks. And here's the best part. The Eagles are going to finish 13-3. They're going to have a 3-3 record in their division. Somehow.
I like that a lot. Still have some embarrassing losses where they need to put it in. All right. I like it. We're off to a very hot start. All right. Hans, where do you have us here? What is your bold division take?
So in my head, I want to talk about the Saints, or I want to talk about the Steelers because I do that every single year.
Yeah.
But tonight, I'm not going to talk about either. I'm going to talk about the Arizona Cardinals. And I don't think anyone's going to have longer odds than me. So I'm rolling with the Arizona
plus 1,200. That will be really hard to top. Plus 1,200 will be really hard to top.
It all bakes down to one player and one player only, and that's Kyler Murray. I'm not the biggest Kyler Murray fan in the world, but actually David and I on our show, Cover One Roundup, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern time, we kind of started talking about Kyler Murray a little bit, and the more and more we talked about him, the more and more I thought about him. Like, he can be a difference maker. That's the unique part of Kyler Murray. He's got some weird things off the field when it comes to tape watching and all this other study stuff. But when he plays football, he's an absolute gamer and can do things a lot of quarterbacks can't do. I know that division is very difficult with the 49ers at the top. I also don't like the 49ers vibes right now. I'm going to talk a lot about vibes tonight. So maybe in a miracle division win, the Arizona Cardinals go through and find a way to, snag that NFC West. Again, bold take, but it's one that I'll put money on. So I'm using that tonight.
Hey, at 1,200, I mean, that's going to be tough to top. And I do think from a talent standpoint, there's a lot. And I was very much in the large group, certainly not alone, the large group making fun of Jonathan Gannon, but inarguably, it registered. Like, what he was saying very weirdly and in a very cringeworthy manner somehow resonated with that locker room. And I mean, that's all that really matters, is that the guys listen to you, and he certainly found a way to connect, even though it felt weird in the snippets that we saw. All right, Chris, closing us out here for our fourth bold division take. Where are you taking us?
Well, I feel like now I need to wear the cone of shame, because I am definitely going to have the least bold of these takes after going with the Cardinals. But my pick actually was the Colts, and that's largely because of the vibes around the Texans right now. They are the belle of the ball. They are the prettiest rose. They have the shine of the league right now with C.J. Stroud and DeMeco Ryans. But I think Steichen is an excellent offensive coach. And that if Richardson can stay healthy and they can harness that lightning in a bottle, then they've got as much a shot as anybody. And the Texans have some real issues on their offensive line. Like, after Tunsil, there's a bunch of question marks there. That defensive backfield after Stingley is a series of question marks. And, the Colts have their own question marks in the defensive backfield as well. But it's really about that combination of Steichen and Richardson for me. And okay, why not? We're talking bold predictions.
I like it. And that was certainly on my list. I like the group that everybody pulled from there. I think that it's going to be interesting to see where some of these different pieces come from. So I actually had the Browns as my surprise one. in that I think there's a lot of moving parts in that division. And I think just because no one wants to root for the Browns or Deshaun Watson, that we then dismiss that the rest of that roster is really, really, really good. And that if he comes back, I don't think there's any scenario where we see the playoff Deshaun Watson that the Bills saw, that spun out of the Matt Milano sandwich sack and somehow hit Tywan Jones on a check down. I still don't know how that happened. I don't think that guy is coming back, but with the rest of that roster, if they simply get like a 12th to 15th quarterback in the league from him, that can be good enough with that team. And you saw that with Joe Flacco last year, in that if you just get reasonable quarterback play, there's so much talent on that offensive line. That run game of the defense is ridiculous that it can get pretty wacky there. So I liked a lot of the calls that we had here. We'll start with David on this next one, and I think a couple of these were set up here. Now this is kind of the opposite side of that coin. What do you see as the boldest disappointing season? I left this open. I'm assuming most are going to go from a team standpoint, but if you have an individual person or player that you think will be disappointed, by all means, take it that direction as well. But David, lead us off here. Who is your biggest disappointment for this season?
So I think the biggest disappointment is going to end up being the Miami Dolphins, because I think they will still have a winning record, but they are going to be just outside of the playoffs. And I think they'll finish like 9-8, but people, I think, are too willing to crown the Dolphins as like that team that can usurp the Bills. I don't see that happening. A third straight year with a new defensive coordinator, really, like, I don't love that. Even if I think Anthony Weaver is a good defensive coach, and he probably is, I just don't love that much change, plus losing Christian Wilkins, plus this edge group. Yes, there's a lot of guys here, but Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips both coming back from major injuries probably means they're not really going to be available for the majority of this season. So if that's the case, then you're relying on your rookie, who's Chop Robinson, and like, solid guy to have in your rotation if there are other guys in front of him, because he's not someone who's built to just come in right away and be like a full-time edge defender in a new defense that no one else on your team knows. I don't, and what was improved about the offense, right? Like, the offensive line didn't really get any better. Really, if anything, losing Robert Hunt makes them pretty significantly worse. And, I think they made the right decision in not paying him 5 years, $100 million like Carolina did, but that's a separate discussion. Tyreek is still Tyreek, Jalen Waddle is still Jalen Waddle. Both are great players. But this is more or less the same offense, and the last two seasons have more or less been the same season for them. Start hot, cool off, kind of find your way into the playoffs. I think this year they just don't. In a very, very tough division, in which I believe the Jets will probably stay healthy.
Ooh, that's a bold take unto itself. I agree. I'm curious because each of the last couple of years, I annoyingly have to acknowledge that obviously McDaniel is very creative and has created something that is very clearly working for a period of time. I think that just as much as we rightfully quickly point out how disappointing they've been in December and into the playoffs, they also legitimately have blown the doors off the league in the first couple months of each season. And some of that, like last year, he created that, I called it burst motion, but that like delayed last second motion. And I'm curious what other wrinkle is there this year, because you now do have more of your game and scheme on film, more counters and preparation from other defenses. Those things that we see in December and January, are we going to see more of that earlier in the season now? And they are more on a razor's edge just because they had to make so many, you kind of kick the can down the road, 1 year Band-Aid fill-ins for some of their signings that they made. So I do think, I think they in New York are in a similar situation where If healthy, it's still a damn good roster. We'll see if it stays healthy. All right, Hans, you're up next here. What's your biggest disappointment?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with a team that finished last in their division last season to be disappointing this season, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that the expectation is when Joe Burrow comes back, suddenly this team's going to be great, and they'll be way better than that 9-8 record they had last season.
Vegas has them right behind Baltimore, plus 140, plus 165, so they're right there.
I think that a lot of Bengals fans and a lot of just NFL media thinks that they're going to challenge the Ravens for that division title. I don't think that's the case at all. I think they finished last in the division again, mainly because Joe Burrow, I have so many question marks on him. I need to see him healthy at the start of the season. I need to see him remain healthy the entire season. And even if you take that out of the equation, say Joe Burrow returns to form to that MVP caliber player at times, they still lost a ton of talent this offseason. And the vibes there are really, really bad. I talked about the 49ers vibes, which is based on Brandon Ayuk mainly. If you go to the Bengals and you look at somebody like T. Higgins, you look at Trey Hendrickson, you look at Jamar Chase, there's some sort of issues happening in Cincinnati right now. I don't know if it's jealousy of Joe Burrow's contract. I don't know if it's, I want my money and I want my money now, but something's wrong in Cincinnati. And I think that division is actually pretty damn stacked, including the Steelers, by the way. And I think the Bengals finish in last in that division.
I like it. That's bold. Chris, where is your biggest disappointing season coming from?
Yeah, I'm gonna take David. Just a little bit worse even for the Cowboys. They're going 6-11 next season, and it's like for the Mike McCarthy of it all, for the Mike Zimmer of it all, who hasn't had a defense that finished better than 24th in points since 2019, for the offensive line of it all. Like, have you really looked at their offensive line? Like, after Zach Martin, Hall of Fame career, awesome. Tyler Smith is probably good, but the guy playing center is Brock Hoffman, and he's got like 200 career snaps. And Terrence Steele, the right tackle.
Let me guess for the rest of the night before I would have come up with the name Brock Hoffman.
I was going to say you just heard of him, but I was like, well, that's a little presumptuous. But,
no, there's a real good chance that a lot of people listening to this just discovered that's a human who exists. And it's a starting center for the Dallas Cowboys.
Starting center for the Dallas Cowboys coming into this year. Like, good on you. Good luck. And then Terrence Steele is arguably one of the worst right tackles in the league. Like 56 pressures last year was fourth worst out of every tackle. Like even Spencer Brown's better than we had hoped for year. He still had 42 pressures, so like this guy was significantly bad. And beyond that, who's the second best offensive weapon they have? Like, they've got CeeDee Lamb, who, if you dedicate a lot of defensive resources to him, who are the Cowboys turning to? Dak's not going to run that much. Is it Ezekiel Elliott? Okay. Is it Rico Dowdle? Okay. I guess he could prove himself. That's possible. Is it Jake Ferguson? He had a nice year last year, but is that really your second best weapon? Like, and then let's just talk about their defensive exodus for a second. Dorrance Armstrong, who had, roughly 10 sacks, three straight years for them. Dante Fowler was really good for them. Neville Gallimore, Jonathan Hankins, Leighton Vander Esch, it might not be that big of a loss, but Stephon Gilmore, Javon Curse, like Dan Quinn is now with the Commanders. Yeah. Like, the talent exodus from that defense at the very least is going to take them, a month, a first third of the season to start to navigate their way through. So yeah, the Cowboys are going 6-11 at best.
Whew. All right, Kyle. I thoroughly enjoy hearing the bold, disappointing takes. I think it says something about me. But Kyle, where is your prediction taking you?
I feel bad following up Chris's analysis, though. He had a lot of good stats, a lot of good numbers, really well thought out, and I'm just like, I just don't like this team. I don't feel good about them. It's vibe-based, like Uber. I'm going with the Jets. And again, this roster, admittedly, may be good enough to succeed in spite of itself, just in spite of everything that would, suggest that the New York Jets are gonna find a way to blow it. I mean, this roster is just incredible. Even if you don't
on
want
paper, on Madden with the injuries turned off, that team wins the division.
Oh, absolutely. Top 5 roster in the league, probably. Like, even if you want to look, there's a lot of question marks regarding Aaron Rodgers, which I'm sure we'll get into. But like, even if you just want to remove him from the equation and look elsewhere, like offensively, Breece Hall, top 5 running back. Garrett Wilson probably should be a top 5 wide receiver. If he's not already in your top 5, he will be before long. Mike Williams, whatever. But then, like, I also like Braylon Allen and Malachi Corley. I think is going to have a good rookie year. Defensively, they are stacked. Like Sauce Gardner, the Williams brothers, Quinnen in particular is quite good. CJ Mosley, Jermaine Johnson, Hassan Reddick. This team is just stacked. But again, you look at the New York Jets and you just kind of figure something's gonna go wrong at some point. I'm not a big Robert Saleh guy. I don't want to give away too much of my wild card prediction, but I'm not entirely sold on Aaron Rodgers this year. I'm not sold on Aaron Rodgers coming back and returning to form. Just biologically, you're a 40-whatever-year-old man coming off of a significant leg injury, a ACL tear. Like, that's not something that generally you can recover from at that point in life and compete at the level that you were previously competing. So yeah, I just think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic, but then also there's just the 2 big question marks for me are generally what lead to team success, and that's confidence in the head coach, which I do not have, and confidence in the quarterback, which I probably should have but do not. So that's why I'm going to say the New York Jets are going to be the biggest disappointment. I'm not going to put a number on it, which I probably should, but I just think, they're not going to meet the Super Bowl or bust expectations that some are giving them.
I agree wholeheartedly. So I'll save a little bit because I think I'll let you get into that and some of the other ones. But yeah, the last time we saw Aaron Rodgers on a football field, he wasn't good. And then now all of a sudden, then he missed the whole next season, and now is going to be coming back from an Achilles, and now is going to all of a sudden be amazing again. So a lot to ask. So I will add, nobody took mine, so I will chime in here. One of the biggest things I always look for each year, partly from a gambling standpoint, but also just in my predictions, is I always like when people do the what if standings of if you just took every 1-score game and flipped it the other way, who stands out. And it's an oversimplification, but we've seen it in some of those years. You had Minnesota in that year where they won all the 1-score games. That was a real easy one going back the other way. It's also sometimes a sneaky way to look for like up and coming teams that had horrible luck in some of the Green Bay the year before. With their breakout last year was a good example of that, where they actually lost a ton of 1-score games that weren't as bad as what it looked. Well, last year, if you flipped all of the 1-score games the other way, the Houston Texans would have been 6-11. I like all of the excitement. I get it. CJ Stroud is awesome. This is not like a negative take on CJ Stroud. I don't expect there to be some like sophomore slump or crashing back to earth. But a lot of things went their way last year. They had a lot of good health luck. They had a ton of their team there. I like DeMeco Ryans as a coach. I don't think they're going to be some disaster of a team, but they had that luck with a 4th-place schedule. Now they're going to have a 1st-place schedule. They're playing the Bills, Kansas City, the Ravens, like just in their, as the other division winners, a 1st-place schedule, 1st-place teams from the NFC as well, on top of rolling the dice that they get that injury luck again, rolling the dice that they get that 1-score game luck again. I just think this idea that I've heard really smart people pick them as their Super Bowl team, and that they're, the number 2 team in the AFC behind the Chiefs. And just, I think we're putting a bit of the cart before the horse here. I do think that it's an up and coming team. I think there's a lot of talent, but I just think an awful lot of things went right for them last year, and to just expect that to happen again. Uber touched on it with Cincinnati. We saw their kind of miracle run when they went to the Super Bowl, and then you kind of saw it come back to earth again, and then it came back down. Some of that's injury related, but that's just how it works. Like sometimes that's how things balance out here. So we'll see where that one goes. But that would be my pick, is that I think people are out a little too far ahead of Houston in where they're going to end up on the year. All right, now we're getting a little bit more open here. We have some different options here. This one's statistical breakout or award winner. Uber, will let you kick things off here. What is your boldest statistical breakout or award winner for this season?
Yeah, so this player that I'm going to talk about, at first I was contemplating saying he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year, but after looking at the past 10 Defensive Players of the Year, 9 of them won the award for sacks. And this guy isn't going to get a lot of sacks, but he's going to be damn good this year, and that's Christian Gonzalez, the Patriots corner. I think Christian Gonzalez finishes this year as a first-team All-Pro, and I think you start to talk about him as, is this the best cornerback in all of football? He's that good. He played 4 games last year before he separated his shoulder, required some surgery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he has every single tool you want from a corner, from an elite corner. And I think with this offseason rehab, being in the NFL for another year, being able to kind of focus on the playbooks, focus on film, on this entire, essentially offseason for him, let's say, I know that team is not going to be very good, and that might hold him back from a lot of these things. But Christian Gonzalez, I believe, is the best player on that team. And at the end of this year, we're going to be talking about him as one of the best players in the NFL.
I dislike any Patriot being good, so I'm going to disregard that and move on. Chris, you're next.
Excellent. We're going to assume that Uber has not said anything and completely disregard that. No, my next one, and this is probably the weakest one that I have, but I think Bijan Robinson is going to lead the NFL in total yards from scrimmage. Over 2,000 yards. Like
mine was Bijan's going to win MVP.
Okay, yeah, I was going to include a couple MVP votes because nobody besides quarterbacks wins MVP.
Yeah, running backs never do. That's why it was going to be bold, is that he has, but I think he's going to have a ridiculous season.
Yeah. I think with, anyone who falls into the non-Arthur Smith category of offensive coordinator is a plus for Bijan. I think, that like having Kirk Cousins, reliable, decent quarterback play is a huge upgrade for that team overall. And yeah, that's pretty much all of it. I could talk a little bit about, him being top 10 in broken and missed tackles and how I think that's going to increase even next year, but that's it.
I'll just chime in a little bit since that was where mine was going. I had a couple little tidbits in that last year, Bijan Robinson had a really nice season, had an excellent season, despite the fact that he would carry the ball all the way down to the 5-yard line and they'd bring in Tyler Algier, or there'd be drives where they would lean into Tyler Algier or use Cordell Patterson in weird ways or not utilize him out of the backfield. Zach Robinson, who is now the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons, came with Raheem Morris, came up in the Sean McVay, world. Guess what they do with their running backs? They stay on the field.
Pound them.
They keep using them. And that's, you talk about from a fantasy standpoint, the people who were, excited the last couple of years, whether it goes all the way back to Todd Gurley or why can't I grab the rookie last year from Notre Dame?
Kyron Williams.
With Kyron Williams, like the reason they had so much fantasy value is he didn't ever take him off the field.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Now he's in charge of Bijan Robinson, who you shouldn't ever want to take off the field.
No.
In the turf, Kirk Cousins running that show. I think he's going to put up some ridiculous numbers this year. Kyle,
I bet the guy who has them on the Cover One Dynasty team is pretty excited.
Probably pretty excited. That guy's probably excited about that. Probably a smart guy who has that. Kyle, on to you.
My breakout was going to be Jonnu Smith as a career leader. But, can't do it.
Well done.
I will stay in Miami, though. No, I will stay in Miami. And again, it might not be that bold of a take, but I'm going to do it anyway. Jalen Wright finishes the season as the running back 1 in Miami, usurping both Devon Achane. Is it Achane or Achan?
Achan. So, like 4chan.
Yes. Yes, I believe that he has said that's his preferred pronunciation. I know most people say Achane. I believe that his preference is Achan.
Well, regardless, he's fallen down the depth chart along with Raheem Mostert. I just think, again, it's kind of like, if you dive into it, I'm sure it is a bold take, but just like biology, right? Where it's just like Jalen Wright is a perfect fit, like tailor-made fit for that offense. Exactly what Mike McDaniel wants to do. that's what Jalen Wright's good at, and Mike McDaniel can kind of scheme around his deficiencies. And vision is a pretty big deficiency for a running back, I will say that. But I feel like Mike McDaniel can put him in positions to succeed. And then, again, you just look biologically, right? Achane is 5'9", 188 pounds. Yeah, electric player, but is that going to hold up over the course of an NFL season? It didn't last year. So, like, are we going to expect that biology is different now and he's going to hold up? I don't know. And Raheem Mostert, 32 years old. Running backs don't last that long. And yes, he did really well last year, career year, I do believe. But just like I think at some point, right, just like reality is going to step in here or check in, and that's going to result in Jalen Wright, who is, again, a tailor-made fit for an explosive offense. And he's 5'11", 200-something pounds. He's more built to last as opposed to Achane. I think that it wouldn't be crazy if there's a realistic road here to him finishing the season as the running back one in Miami.
I like it, but again, we won't say any nice things about Miami, so we'll move on. David, your bold statistical breakout and or award winner.
So in his first three, also my internet is being uncooperative, so if I cut out, just tell me to repeat.
The good news is your audio has been clean, so you're good there.
Perfect. Love that. All right. So in his first three seasons, this particular wide receiver has a combined total of just over 1,100 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. I think that Rashad Bateman will eclipse his total receiving yards, catches, and touchdowns all in this season. All in this season. I don't know by how much, but I think he has more than 1,100. I think he has more than 1,200 total yards, and I think he has more than 4 touchdowns. And I think it's the one I'm gonna slightly back off on is probably doesn't have 93 catches or more. Maybe it's around that range, but yeah, that's what I'd say. I like Rashad Bateman. I think and this is one of those players that I liked coming out of the draft, and it's just one of those players that I can't let go of. Yeah, it's just like he's got to be good, right? Like if he just stays healthy, if he just does it, if they, we'll see. Obviously, you still have Zay Flowers there. You have Mark Andrews. There's other players that can take targets away from him, but I mean, they gave him a 2-year extension when I don't think anybody was really expecting them to. So they probably feel a certain way about him. And I think that they're going to get, at the very least, a very, very good season that far surpasses anything else that he's done leading up to this year. So,
okay, I like it. And I'm not far off of there. He's one of those guys that you just can't quit, and one of these years I think it will click for him. So we'll see. This is the one. All right, Chris, you get to lead us off here. All shackles are off. The wild card round is open. Any prediction is fair game. Where are you going in this wild card round?
So I thought it actually meant the wild card round.
Absolutely.
As dumb as ever. But so I tossed Jets fans a bone and said, you guys get to make the playoffs, but you lose to the Bills 32-3.
Love it.
I like it.
Hearing that gave me a semi.
Scenario. The ideal scenario, and I will say not terribly dissimilar from my Browns comment earlier, that roster is really, really good. We'll see if the offensive line and the Mike Williams-ness of the offense stays healthy, but that defense is crazy and young and healthy. Ideally, that wild card round is Josh Allen versus Tyrod Taylor. Like, that would be all that's right in the universe. I would really like to see that round of it. So, Kyle, where are you going with this wild round?
You put it on a tee for me, Greg. I appreciate that. My wild card round prediction is that Aaron Rodgers retires mid-season, citing creative differences.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Why? Because he scheduled an Egyptian vacation during a known mandatory minicamp.
He's just got other things to do.
He's supposed to be a leader of.
He's just a busy guy. He's got other things to do. He might be vice president. Who knows?
Was
but
that this July? Is that when was that when that's supposed to?
I think again, this is one of the, you said I need to believe them like 25% of the way. It's not much more than that I believe that, but there's like a 26% chance at least that Aaron Rodgers retires in November because he's bored and he's just like, I just want to go on Pat McAfee and talk about ayahuasca. So I
Not
think
wrong.
Yeah, that's the prediction.
I like it. David, where are you going with your wildcard round?
The Colts are going to be the 2 seed.
Woo!
That's what I'll throw out there.
Spicy. I love it.
I only had them winning the division.
Listen, they're going to win the division. Both the Colts and the Texans are both going to be 12-5, but the Colts will have a 4-2 record in the division, and the Texans will only have a 3-3 record. And that apparently, according to what I did here, which is not to make any sort of sense by the time we get like midway through the season. This is gonna look terrible what I did here on Playoff Predictors, but that's not the point. Colts, I think, are a very good team. I think they're a very exciting team. I think they could be 12-5 and be the 2 seed.
I like it. And I do think that's a fun and exciting team. And I will say, I think Shane Steichen's real. I think he's the real deal. And I think that the drop-off we saw from Philadelphia has been ascribed to a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest piece of it, I think the Kyle, bringing Kyle back this year could help stem that tide a little bit. But I think a lot of that was Steichen leaving and going there. And if Richardson stays healthy, that combination of Steichen with the ball of clay that Anthony Richardson is could be really, really fun. All right, Hans, final one for the wildcard round. Where are you going?
Yeah, and this is probably the most boring out of what everyone else has said, but I promise you in the final round I will make up for the boring nature of this one. Yeah. The boring nature of this one is that 2 or more undrafted free agents from this year make the Bills roster. I've got Jack Browning. I think I might have been the first person on earth that tweeted out Jack Browning is going to make the Bills. I still think he's going to be the Bills punter. The other player I'm in on is Keaton Bills, who the more and more research I did on him and what he did at Utah at left guard in particular, a position for the Bills that is a little bit of a question mark. Is David Edwards the guy there? Could Keaton Bills beat him out for a starting job? Maybe not, but maybe he does enough to make that 53-man roster. And you want one dark horse that has a shot, Xavier Johnson, just because of his return ability. And that's the only reason, or that quick movement he can make in the new kickoff format. So yeah, 2 or more undrafted free agents make the Bills roster this year.
Where's the Kenny Lovely love?
No, I'm not in on that.
But it is fun. We do have some combinations there, and I do think some of the I also add Xavier Johnson also has some great special teams coverage ability. Yes. He did a lot of gunner responsibilities at Ohio State as well, so there is some overlap there. And when you look at a guy fighting for that 52nd, 53rd roster spot, that's the kind of function that can make the difference in the tiebreaker there. I'm going to combine this, and the last one I kind of gave as a bonus where you can go off field. It doesn't have to be team results or anything like that. I'm going to kind of mix it with a little bit on the field and a little off with the rule change. I think the new kickoff rule is going to be a really big deal. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to make a big difference. I will say it's not going to be quite to the degree of the flash in the pan that that we saw with, oh my God, I just drawing a blank of the Dolphins running back.
Wildcat.
The Wildcat. Good Lord, my brain's not functioning tonight. Where it was huge and then really dropped off because very quickly teams kind of figured out how to defend it. And be like, oh, well, that's not going to work anymore. But it was awesome that 1 week against the Patriots. I think for the first month of the season, we see like a dozen kick return touchdowns. I think it's going to have a ton. And then I think you'll see it settle in a little bit where, one, I think part of the answer is annoyingly more touchbacks, and teams will be like, well, screw it. Especially the teams who get scored on. The teams who get scored on will be like, no, this is stupid. We're just going to kick it out of the end zone. You can have it at the 30. And we will also see some of the strategic adjustments in coverage and in placement and how to do it. But I think in the interim, when teams are figuring that out, I think we see a lot of wackiness all over the league, and I think it's going to be really fun. I think like the reason this was brought back is they found a way to bring back one of the most fun plays in the league while making it safer. And there's going to be some traditionalists being, oh, this looks weird, because it will. It's going to look a little weird. But then I think we're going to kind of get over that, and we're going to get a little bit used to it, and it's going to be really, really fun. And I think it's going to be more impactful than people realize. That's going to be my wild card kind of rule change one that I think that we'll see. Kyle,
nice.
For your finale of the show, what is your final prediction?
Okay, so I'm going to keep it very broad because it's admittedly it's an off-field wild card. It's a wild prediction, so I'll keep it broad. An NFL player joins a cult.
Like publicly, you mean?
I will say credible information comes out, and we can confirm that an NFL player is in a cult.
Because I'd argue that that's already happened, but
it's probably going to be a wide receiver. But
my mind went to a place. Although I will say, I think I just read about how one of the NBA draft picks here was like legitimately groomed and like shut off his family. Yes. Like I read a whole thing about that, like his family coming out saying like they're not allowed to talk to him because his now wife or maybe fiance was also his babysitter when he was in his like 10 years older than him, and it was like a 26-16 thing going on, and now he has shut off his entire family and only is allowed to talk to her and her circle of people. So yeah, you never know. Or one of the bosses. Could be either of those. All right, David, where are you taking your final prediction for the show?
I'm gonna cheat. This is a two-parter, but they're connected. I promise. It's not a stretch at all. Dak Prescott is extended in the middle of the season, and around the same time, Mike McCarthy is fired.
Hell yeah! Hell yeah!
I love it. I love
Jerry Jones is gonna be like, I know who the problem is, and I know who the problem isn't.
By far, the most realistic part of that is Jerry Jones thinking he knows who the problem is and who the problem isn't. So I respect that fully. That is a great answer. I really like where you took perfect. That. I like it. Yep. And I wanted it to happen. Both of those things. All right. What is your final one here? You did build up a little bit of expectation.
I did.
Don't let us down.
Yeah. So by mid-season, we see a significant number of Jaguars fans start to complain about Trevor Lawrence's contract, and not just complain about it, but call for Mac Jones to start football games.
Yes.
Oh. So, yeah, I can't wait for that to happen. I can't wait.
Awesome. If you guys follow, and by all means, at Uber Hansen, you see it on the screen there. The only thing, it's a close second. He doesn't take jabs quite as often as he does at the Miami Dolphins anytime there's a chance to throw anything at the Dolphins. I really love the way that he's able. The Matt Moore one earlier today just made my day. It was fantastic. Matt Moore has more touchdowns against the Bills than Tua Tagovailoa. That's just fabulous.
Perfect tweeting. Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Absolutely perfect. The only thing that's like second on that list of most frequent stone thrown is at Trevor Lawrence, and it's great.
And I never intend to stop.
I respect it fully. All right, Chris, close us out here. What is your final off-field prediction for the show?
I'm not sure I can top Uber in boldness, but this is something I believe with my whole heart. Tom Brady will be a terrible broadcaster. Everything that you like from him is prepared speeches. The things where you're like, oh, do I like Tom Brady now? No, all of that is prepared. All right. This man wears hoodies with the string tied like a shoe.
So do I. I gotta leave.
He is weird.
He's a fashion icon.
He will be a terrible broadcaster. Weird. And I am going to enjoy every minute
I'm catching a
of his
stray right now. I shouldn't say that.
I am going to relish in all of his crazy Adam Gase-like eyes that get caught on camera. I am going to relish in just him being exposed as a terrible broadcaster and a fundamentally weird human.
And a little extra that I think an awful lot, specifically like the football intelligentsia, like the really like clued in people truly came around to love Greg Olson as an announcer. And I think there's like a genuine rallying around like, wait, you just took like $7 million a year away from your best announcer to force Tom Brady into his spot when you just stumbled upon a really, really genuine talent. I want badly for them to have messed that up bad enough that Amazon or somebody else comes and takes him. I really want that to be what ends up happening. But I like it. I mean, I don't wish anything good for Tom Brady. So him being terrible at something would be great. I would love to be able to see that and experience that. So I like it. I really, really like it. We did a great job here tonight. I hope everyone enjoyed the many, many bold takes that the team had here. Kudos to everyone. As Uber and David mentioned earlier, make sure you're checking them out on Monday nights at 7 o'clock on the Cover One Roundup. They do a fantastic job. Check out all the work that you see written from all of the gentlemen here chipping in over at the new venture at give us the website again, Kyle, where they can find all the work with Sports Illustrated Bills.
si.com/NFL/Bills.
Perfect. Kyle's leading the way over there as the editor, and each of the gentlemen here on the show are writing for that source, and I've already enjoyed several of them, so really, really looking forward to where that's going to go going forward and bringing something that I think many of us had as a real, cornerstone of our sports information growing up, coming back into that light again. So really excited to see the Sports Illustrated brand leaning into kind of the smart avenue of people who are informed in each pocket of the fan bases and being able to build from there. I think that was a great approach. And Chris doing fantastic work here with us, with the guys over at the film room. Everywhere else you can see him on Twitter at LowBuff, but make sure you find him as well. But thank you for joining us here tonight. We appreciate all you guys. And on behalf of everybody here at Cover One, I'm Greg Tompsett, and we are